comeback conversations. I just played some music, and that was definitely 80s music. I think my co-host probably wasn't alive when some of that music was out. I think Mr. Davis probably was alive during that time frame. I don't know if Miss Johnson was alive yet, but that's just some 80s flavor. And as we continue and before we get into tonight's teaching, we do a quick, dialogue, monologue, and it's bad enough that we're still at some tension of war. It is still not conceivable why gas prices are where they are, and then how that's about to trickle down to everything else, not only across this country, but globally, because everyone's starting to feel it. I mean, there's estimates where more food insecurity is going to happen across the globe. And, we need to be mindful that we are not only socioeconomical for the United States, but we should always recognize that we move from a geopolitical standpoint as well, where decisions in one country can affect another. But I think it was an all-time low. I would say Easter Sunday, which was not too long ago, time of this taping. This past weekend was Orthodox Easter weekend. But the general Easter Sunday that most other Catholics or most other believers believe in, we had a very fiery and vulgarity-laced tirade by the person in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, who happened to used to be a former resident of New York. Thank God he's no longer that. But I believe what he did this past weekend, I don't know what's going on. And the sad thing is he has his own social media platform, so it's not even something to say someone take his phone away so he can't post. And, this is the same individual who posted about, former President Barack Obama and his wife depicted them as monkeys. But this past week to me an extra low. I mean, the vitriol was so quick that he had to pull that thing down in like less than 2 or 3 hours, where he had a picture that he posted that had him invoking the presence as if he was Jesus. And the reason why this leads into what we're dealing with probably the next couple of weeks as part of the Dynasty Path about lie-identity. You heard me correctly, lie-identity. And because there are times that affects your money, that affects who you are, that affects how you navigate your lie-identity. We're going to deal with that. But I'm going to ask Ms. Johnson, because I know she's someone who at least is abreast of what is going on. How you like your president, what he's doing, how he's been carrying on. I would love to hear your thoughts.
As a member of the 92%, I do not care for Mr. Donald Trump, who is currently sitting at the head of the United States. I used to say of the free world, but watching news sources from around the world, not listening to US media, I realized that's absolutely not true. We have lost most respect on the world stage. And it's like, okay, losing respect, I can kind of understand. But when it starts affecting us economically, when we are already approaching depression stages, it's frightening. Seeing the cost of things, the cost of gas, which has gone up over $1 in a month. I haven't seen prices this high since we had Hurricane Sandy in New York, which was close to 10 years ago, I think. So it's very concerning, but that prayer thing is going to kick in a lot harder these days, and I'm complete.
Thank you for that. Mr. Davis, what do you say coming from the Midwest? How's that affecting y'all out there in the Midwest? And what's your thought patterns about, some of the things that we're talking about before we jump into the main teaching? I think Mr. Davis had his mic open, then he closed it. Let's see if he can open it back up. So Dave, there we go.
I'm
Yeah.
on? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Eh,
Okay, now he's back off. Okay. So let's try this one more time before we move on. Because you
There
got
you go.
there we
Up there
go.
now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Every time I speak, I gotta turn the phone and then it goes off for some reason. But back to the subject, I think the president of the United States, he is in a very, very steep decline, not just in popularity and not just in, I believe that his health and mental awareness is in decline as well.
Mm.
And it's very unfortunate, not for just him, but for the country as a whole. And he's doing damage that is going to take several presidents to even get us to the point where we need to be at as far as leading the world. I believe that in the next couple of months, you're going to see the petrodollar slowly but surely dissipate.
Mm.
And it's just going to be which means inflation, of course, in the United States is going to be crazy. But I didn't vote for him. And all I got to do now is just pray that the time he has left will be quick and I'm complete.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And you know, and as I was talking about him doing his truth socials and all the other stuff that, you know, can't even call tweeting anymore. So it's just amazing. It's very mind-boggling. And what makes it even worse is that when you hear some of the people who are those staunch supporters of him, now all of a sudden you're hearing a lot of crickets. Or you're starting to see that there's a lot of backlash even coming from the people who supported him. In between this war that you started on February 28th that no one knew anything about, to how gas prices, as Nicole just alluded to, over 40% rise in gas prices, a war with a country that you were negotiating with, um, a strait of and a waterway that was open for business with no drama, no nothing, got closed and affecting stuff from a geopolitical standpoint. And there's a backlash that's coming. People are starting to see that maybe those people said he should not get a second term. And I'm in that realm as well, but probably or some of the individuals who are part of the circle here that we didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for him the first time, didn't vote for him when he attempted for the reelection, and didn't vote for him when he ran a third time, man. So I know I didn't vote for this. And when you hear what makes it worse, all of the things that they say, he's going to come in there and drain the swamp. He is the swamp. He's going to come in here and not start wars. He starts wars. He's going to come in here. He's going to show how great of a businessman he is. What? But how many bankruptcies he has on his belt? And now between the tariffs, that was one thing. And now with this, what's going on with oil prices, sometimes you just got to shake your head. So I think we spent enough time dealing or, sharing some space about this gentleman. I'm still attempting to have some level of decorum because he does hold an office. But I totally agree. His mental capacity is becoming very, very small. And it starts to show that, his identity is really full of bluster. And sometimes you can dress up a pig, but a pig will always find its way back to the slop. And for that, we're going to move on. So now, one other thing. Criticism and critiquing is always beneficial. Feedback is always needed in everyone's life. Feedback that's given outwardly and out of an expression of love and development is always, even if you don't like the medicine, anything that's expressed from back channels or anything that's expressed is just like how they're attempting to do this back channel diplomacy now because of all the foolishness that he has done. You start to recognize, I'd rather someone tell me up front their feelings instead of me hearing about it, in a round-the-way way. And so, let's just be mindful that sometimes you can be delivering a message that can be very beneficial, but the way you deliver it can end up not only skewing the message, but making the message not decidedly being adhered to because the way it's presented and the way it becomes disseminated. So we should just keep that as a food for thought in the back of our minds, because we may do that in our social settings, we may do that in our professional settings, we may even do that in family settings. It's not good because, if you got something to say, say it. If you don't have anything to say, then why is it back channeling? Just food for thought. But right now, we're about to go into lie-identity. We're going to go into the lie-identity. Yes, 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 we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And as always, as my screen now, hopefully, because I know last week we had some issues. So I hope this week, do we have any extra boxes, Miss Johnson?
We do, but hopefully it'll clear up in a couple seconds.
Okay, we're talking just a box up top, right?
A box up top and a box covering the gentleman's hand. Hold on. The box up top is gone. We can move on.
Okay, good. Good. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And I'll wait till the box decides to pop back up again. I don't know why. I don't know why it's covering up my title. Okay, there we go. Okay, I don't know what's okay. No. At least we're doing a little better. I don't understand this. Okay. Just wait, give it a couple seconds. So hopefully this box up top. Okay, there we go. We should be good. Breaking the Lie-Dentity. Ms. Johnson, can you read that subplot right under that title, Breaking the Lie-Dentity?
Overcoming imposter syndrome through divine identity and financial stewardship.
Now, one of the things that we're going to deal with, and we're going to deal with this over the next couple of weeks, is part of the dynasty path. Because remember, here at the Comeback Conversations, part of being a part of this community, the circle, we don't only deal with financial literacy, we deal with ontological movements. And our ontology shows a lot about our being. Like I stated earlier, you can dress up something or bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. You can attempt to dress up a pig, but the pig is going to jump back in the slop and mess up everything. And you're going to get mad at the pig for being a pig. The pig is a pig. So if you're going to dress it up, just recognize its nature, recognize its ontology. And when you can recognize that, then you start to minimize your ability to be disturbed by it. Now, either you're going to give it attention or you're going to recognize that it doesn't deserve your attention. If it doesn't deserve your attention, then you know how to move effectively on. So identity is revealed, not discovered, but is always declared by God. See, we always have to have some sort of foundation, some sort of connection. We can be talking about all these great things about, insurance and wills and trusts and this and how can we apply that. But then where's your foundation? Where's your center? And your center has to be always there so you have some sort of grounding. And as we were talking and alluded to earlier, you can tell that the individual who's occupying the White House right now has no centering. It's very narcissistic. It shows his lie-identity because he's playing president right now. All his moves are not presidential. He's playing president. He's doing a role. He's acting, and he's acting out badly. So we always should know that our identities always gets revealed. Wealth is also always aligned, not accidentally, but spiritually ordered. God is a God of order. If your money starts acting funny and it's based upon your actions, now we're not talking about, as we alluded to, There's certain costs that are going up that are hitting people in their wallets and pockets, and we respect that. We understand that, and we stand and affirm with those people. That's not a situation where someone is being willy-nilly with their resources or their responsibilities. It's just right now, certain costs are just being amplified and elevated, excuse me. And it's really no one's fault. It's basically, the decisions of a few have impacted the many. So in that situation, now it's about all of us figuring out how could we ride this season out. That's a big difference than being responsible for certain things and you know what you have and then you mismanage it. And then in the mismanagement, you start to wonder why there's no alignment. There's not an alignment because costs went up. It's an alignment because there's a misalignment in you. So wealth is always aligned. And so your comeback begins with agreement, not achievement. And that first agreement that you must make with yourself, sometimes you got to look in that mirror and be like, wait a minute, what am I doing? What am I doing that's disagreeable, that's creating this atmosphere that all of a sudden now I'm playing catch up? Do we blame the responsibilities or the bills? Or do we blame our response to it? Or do we blame our actions? And there are too many times we like to blame stuff outside of ourselves instead of taking the moment to look in the mirror and be like, wait a minute, the reason why I messed up. And when you can stand in the mirror and recognize, like, okay, I messed up. Now, what are the things that I need to do to fix the mess up? And if I start applying yourself or applying itself into those possibilities, you start to recognize how you can be maneuvering. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. Hopefully this nice little box will get out of the way. Bye-bye, box. Bye-bye. Hopefully, okay, there we go. Okay. That's interesting. Don't mind us. We're just dealing with these minor technological situations that are happening. Okay, the awakening scripture. Nicole, can you just read the title of this slide?
Sure. Exodus 4 and 11. Excuse me. Exodus 4, 11 through 14. God calls, Moses resists.
Come on. There are times that we resist correction. There are times we can be in a space where we are being aligned into something that we may not necessarily desire to be aligned with. It's just like even in ministry, you have people who, they may have a calling, but do they really accept the calling? Are they really willing to work within the calling? Or is it just title based? Is it just because, you have a title and okay, you just belong to the title? So that can also mess with your identity because you can either move in the capacity of it or you start to recognize that you're moving in a lie-identity. So what happened here? If we talk about what happened in these particular verses, God assigns Moses a world-changing mission. Moses pushes back, not once, but repeatedly. God's response grows in intensity, not because Moses lacked the ability, because he refused to accept who he was. And we can even put there, because we're not just misogynistic, we can say, Moses is just playing a character. So it could be male or female. How many times will we know that we have a mandated thing that it's pretty much something that we're supposed to be rocking out with and moving towards? Not saying it's going to be perfect, not saying that you're going to do everything correct and right and everything is not, there's not going to be no hindrances or stumbling and things of that nature, because there are times you can fail forward or fall forward. I want you to think about that. We think success just means that everything moves in always proper alignment. Sometimes part of the alignment is that you are supposed to have that momentary loss. It's like in most sports when you see certain teams, like I think it was the University of UConn. Everyone just thought they were going to win the women's championship this year. Boom, they make it to the semifinals, and what happened? Perfect season done. We even saw it to the point that there was, a mini verbal, spat. But then we start to recognize there's no such thing as perfection. You may have a perfect season. There have been plenty of perfect seasons, but that doesn't mean you're still a perfect person. Just everything was aligned, that everything fell into place with the capacity, capability, and sometimes even a little bit of luck that you were able to manifest that. But as we see in Exodus 4, God was giving Moses a mission. Now, the key insight, Moses did not have a confidence problem. I want you to get that. Even though he was an individual who stuttered, maybe he was an individual that wasn't the greatest orator, but that wasn't really his confidence area. He didn't have a lack of confidence. He had an identity problem. His resistance was not humility, it was rejection of divine capacity. When we resist our calling, we resist the variability God embedded within us. And probably some of us know, the scripture in Jeremiah says, I knew you, in the belly. I knew you, we can, people, that's probably part of Sunday school lore, where, God knew you from the belly. So God already knew that Moses was able or has the capacity to be able to do this thing. But my man was pushing back. He was like, what? You sending me to do what? You sending me to Wait a minute, Moses, this is what you were born to do. That's why you were able to make it during that time when most of those other babies were being destroyed. God put that hedge of a protection around you. And God has done the same thing for each and every one of us. He's giving you that ability. He's giving you that hedge. Now it's about, are you really working your hedge? And the key thought of this particular slide is resistance to calling is a resistance to capacity. Any thoughts from anyone in regards to what this slide is saying or what it may be saying to you in your own respective path? We would love to open up the floor for some comments and some thoughts so it doesn't feel like a monologue. Anyone? You going to do the first, Beulah? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Excellent. So we're going to move on. As we wait for the box to disappear, I'm the barber of today. Gotta figure out their setting that will stop them doing that. The modern name, imposter syndrome, feeling unqualified despite being called. You know how many people use that as that excuse? I'm not good enough. I don't know this. I don't know that. Where God always gives us the opportunity and the capacity to be able to accomplish anything if you have the belief. There's so many times we have gifts and talents that are not necessarily buried, but we just don't utilize, and then we call it someone else is doing something to us, or someone else is doing this, or someone else is doing that. It's all you, your choices. So millions of gifted, God-appointed leaders shrink in the very rooms they were designed to occupy. Imposter syndrome whispers, you don't belong here. You'll be found out. You're not enough. But the church must name this for what it truly is. So you got to think about that. A lot of times people are moving in that imposter syndrome. Oh, I'm a female. Oh, I'm a this. Oh, I'm a black male. Oh, I'm a this. Oh, I stuttered. And then Moses was given all that. How can I go speak and go on a court and be an orator? It's like, go forth. You have a mandate. I've given you providence, but you're choosing not to utilize it. So, Ms. Johnson, if you can read the first box.
Fear of being found out, a persistent dread that others will discover you are not as capable as they believe, even when your fruit proves otherwise.
Has that ever happened to you?
I feel personally attacked. It's constant, but I'm working through it with
No, this is
revelation and
good.
understanding. Yeah.
No, this is good. So now we can be in a dialogue. Why do you feel like people are going to look at you like they're finding out something about you in those respective moments? Because
Some
you
of
have
it
the
was social
capacity and you're
programming.
capable.
Some of it is social programming,
Okay.
and some of it is choosing not to. It's easier not to have to be in the spotlight. It's easier being a supporting character, and you can get a lot done. But
Okay.
when you realize and you have prophetic revelation was like, yeah, that was fun for you. The chapter's closed. It's go time.
Mm.
So if you work it out before that time comes, it's a lot easier. But even socially, imposter syndrome is now a common term. Now it's a comfortable, people almost feel comfortable living with imposter syndrome.
Wow.
So it takes places like the Comeback Collective to kind of say, hey, you know what? You're greater than you are. Let's help give you tools to get to your uncomfortable, which is actually progress. I am complete.
Excellent. Excellent. That is so powerful. Thank you for that. Shrinking in assigned spaces, pulling back from boardrooms, pulpits, and platforms that God specifically positioned you to occupy and influence. So, Mr. Davis, have you ever been in a space that you had to shrink or felt like you were shrinking?
Definitely, definitely. It is but it's a lot to it, and I maneuver in ways where I can still be me
Mm.
and still know the truth that I have, and that's it.
Okay, good. Because there are times where we can be positioned in areas and not recognize. And I said that earlier about falling forward or failing forward. You're like, wait a minute, how could you put those two words together? That sounds like they don't go together. But that was part of the process that even Moses had to go through. Each time God kept beckoning him, was like, yo, here's your mandate. Here's what you're supposed to be accomplishing. And he kept pushing back. So he was failing and moving towards what God had put him positioned in, but he was still moving. God is persistent. And I say that all the time. There are so many times that lessons turn into blessings, and God will keep you in a particular class until you come to the resolve to learn to allow yourself to pass that class. And once you pass that class, you can move on to the next step. And you can see people who may have been well doing and may have even a good heart. You can sit there and say, oh, that baby got a good heart. The baby can sing. No, she can't. But oh, look at it. You don't encourage the baby. You don't tell the truth. The baby, she can sing. And you sit there like, okay. But then eventually you start to notice at one particular point, maybe the child may not necessarily be ready, but because they fell forward and kept practicing and kept building capacity in that area, all of a sudden you turn around one day like, whoa, oh, excuse me. You got the next Whitney here? Remember the time when she sounded like her voice was just cracking? She stopped shrinking in that space, whereas even though it wasn't workable at one point, she kept being consistent, or he kept being consistent at it. And we should be mindful when you have individuals around you, or individuals may attempt to position themselves in a way to attempt to minimize you because you're of your consistency, or minimize you because of what maybe they're not doing. And it empowers them to be in a space like, okay, they're attempting to keep you small and attempting to shrink you. And sometimes you have to recognize, are you going to fall into the trap, or you're going to allow yourself to say, you know what, this is part of the process. Okay. It's almost like that when Kobe Bryant was alive, that Mamba mentality. So you had that Mamba mentality. You ain't this and you ain't that and you ain't no good and da 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 da. I'm gonna keep going. You ain't hear all the stuff I talked about you. You got a small this and then da da da. So I got it. I got it. I got it. But I'm still going forward. I'm still going to empower myself. I'm still going to generate that life from within. Because if I don't generate that life from within, nothing outside of me is going to quench whatever purpose that I may have. So that leads us to the truth. This is not humility. Humility empowers. I say this again. Humility does empower, because humility becomes that part of your benchmark. It's not so much an anchor to keep you back, but it's that humbleness to recognize, like, okay, When should I speak and when should I not speak? When should I be really listening? When should I be talking? That's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. This is misalignment. It diminishes you. One glorifies the Most High, the other contradicts. So you have to recognize when you start playing that imposter syndrome or playing that thing, I'm this and I'm that, and you keep giving, and some of us have the best stories. I even put myself in that. We can have the best story. We can have a bestseller like we're writing the next It by like Stephen King. And you start to recognize all of that. It was just all about fearfulness and how we have the ability to overcome. But I'm going to give you this long, beautiful story because it sounds wonderful. I believe it. But it's still all about misalignment. So, any thoughts by anyone before we move on? Yeah, I know Mr. Franklin's here, and I'm going to get Mr. Franklin in a couple of seconds. So his voice can be in the matter and be in the space of participation. I got to figure out why that keeps doing that. Core concept, introducing the lie-dentity. A lie-dentity is a false identity built not by God, but by circumstance. And see, this is what I call circumstance. I can't read, or I can't count, or I can't do this. And every time you start doing that can't, everything starts with, I can't. It's like, okay. You're already minimizing yourself, not anyone else. But the worst case scenario is you're doing all this minimization, but it's better to shoot out that energy to everyone else. It's like, wait a minute. You have the ability to overcome and be as powerful as you so choose. Nah, I'm believing the lie-identity. I'm generating the lie-identity. It feels true, as it says up top. It sounds factual. But it was never authored in heaven. You authored that. See, Moses, who had a stuttering problem, didn't recognize how to maneuver and be powerful, even with that affliction. Let's call it an affliction, because we're all afflicted. When he recognized that even what would be considered his affliction, or what thought he can utilize as his excuse, that his go-to excuse, after a while, it's like, wait a minute, you can't even use that anymore. It has no power, it has no weight. So when we start to think about this, we can move in the right environments. We can create an identity about environment, the neighborhood, the household, the culture that told you who you were before God got to speak. So, Mr. Franklin, have you ever experienced that? Come on,
Yeah, I have.
And why have you experienced that? Come on, let's get your voice in the matter. Why have you experienced that?
A lot of times I experience it in business. That's a lot of times when I mainly experience it. I get to the point where I'm trying to make some decisions, and most times it's not my decision. It's like off, and I kind of fail at that too. Sometimes I'm kind of still working in that area. I'm complete.
Oh, thank you for that. Appreciate that share. And what you just alluded to is to the second point, fear. Emotional narratives rooted in past pain that becomes governing beliefs about your future potential. So could you be always looking through the rear view mirror in life? I got picked on in 5th grade. They laughed at me in 6th grade. They told me I was fat. They told me I was this. They told me I was that. Now, as a developing individual or as a child, yes, there are certain experiences that can create an atmosphere which can limit your potential. But then after a while, even though you may have experienced those things, we're not negating those things and we're not minimizing those things. But then after a while, you do have to make a pertinent choice. Are you going to continue to live through the fear and allow the fear to be the part of your governing pathway? Or do you recognize, even though, yes, you experience those things, we're not going to negate them and say, forget about it. No, don't forget so you don't repeat. But are you moving through the fear? Are you creating a space that identity is the thing that's governing you? So instead of you moving via faith, which will lead to more prosperity, more definitive thoughts, more powerful decision making, more things that can enhance you. No, you're moving through all the things that can keep you in poverty. And sometimes the worst case scenario is we're generating our own poverty. And I'm not talking about poverty saying about more money, because all money is going to do is amplify who you are. Because even a pig can get more money, and if the pig couldn't handle 10,000, how are you going to handle 1,000,000? How are you going to handle? No, if the pig couldn't handle 10,000, how are you going to handle 100,000? But we can make those statements. Oh, I desire more. Great, you can have access to more. But how have you been able to handle this? Or do you continue to move from some fear-based scenario that keeps hindering what your president is supposed to be doing? Which leads to those past experiences. Failures, I've had plenty. And I'm proud of them. Because without those failures, I wouldn't have had the ability to have some space of humility and to recognize, you can grow through that. That can actually enhance your path. We have so many examples of people who were failures in certain parts of their life that ended up being wonderfully prosperous because they had one caveat that they dealt with, even though they dealt with all those failures in their past experiences. They stayed consistent to where they were going, regardless of how long it took them. I always think about Colonel Sanders in his 60s. That man had finger-looking good chicken for a long time. But not until the 60s did it hit. And I'm talking about really hitting a way where it became not only a countrywide situation, but it became a worldwide brand. And you would look at Colonel Sanders and say, oh my God, prior to his 60s, he must have been a terrible failure. He was this, he was that. You know how much power that is? That he may have experienced all those things, and as we continue to thought that he had to deal with those rejections and those disappointments that could calcify into permanent identity statements. But he chose not to uphold the identity. He chose not to. We're not saying that the failures didn't happen. We're not saying that he wasn't rejected. Probably plenty of people said, I'm 7 herbs and spices and chicken, it's not going to work. What are you talking about? People can fry chicken in their house. Who won't buy some chicken? Okay. And the disappointments, probably the doors closed. People said it wasn't going to work. All the other stuff that can continuously be happening and being created in those respective experiences. Now, the identity can kick in is when, as we say in that statement, calcified. That means it becomes hardened. It becomes so entrenched that it's like, you know what? All those past experiences have shaped me who I am, and that's who I am, and that's who I'm going to move through. Like, okay. Why is that? Who bewitched you? Who beguiled you? Are you going to blame someone outside yourself, or are you going to recognize it's truly always you? Just a thought. And the power statement. You can be factually correct about yourself and spiritually wrong at the same time. Ooh, I think I'm messing with people's, internalized viewpoint of themselves. I'm going to say that again. You can be factually correct about yourself. That means, yes, you're a woman. Yes, you're Black. Yes, you're fat. Yes, you may be a diabetic. Yes, you may have hypertension. Yes, you may have this condition. Yeah, you may have that condition. Okay, that's all facts. Now, the point of that is, are you willing to work the affliction? Because even if you work the affliction, you can be afflicted and find the thing that will help you deal with it and even minimize that so that you can overcome it. Not saying you're going to disappear. Not saying that you can change being fat. Get in the gym. Start exercising. And when I think about my own health journey, I went from 420 pounds to right now I'm in my 250s, and I thank God for that. But it was a process. It wasn't like a snap of the fingers. And even these days where you have all these GLP-1s and you can have Ozempic or Zepbound and all of that stuff, it helps to accentuate the path. Those things are not really there just for you to take a shot and say you took a shot and you're going to lose weight. No. The shot is a part of the process. But too many times people use the shot as that's your magic pill. That's your beans from Jack and the Beanstalk. But I just take this shot, not recognizing you could be factually incorrect. That's a tool and part of your repertoire. Now, what else are you doing? But if you're only doing that, it's like the same way with certain people may get surgeries and stuff like that. Okay, you got the surgery for weight loss, and then okay, you got surgery for weight loss. That's great. What did you do with it? I got surgery for weight loss. Okay, what did you do with it? How did you allow that opportunity of that reset to reset the rest of your life? Or are you just waiting for the next surgery? We have to think about those things. We have to really be empowered to say, okay, are we utilizing the thing? Or are we really utilizing the possibility? So yes, there could be plenty of things about you that are factually correct. That we can use society as the linchpin and we can say, oh, I'm this and I'm that and that. And we start sitting, let's jot it all down. Let's write it down. Let's write it down. Yeah, I'm this, and I got one crooked finger, and I got a left pinky toe that looks a little crooked in it. It's okay. Come on, we're gonna keep writing them all down because we're gonna keep documenting your story and not recognizing you are creating an identity that's not beneficial, that doesn't bring forth life, and keeps you in a space of playing small.